Hello and welcome to the DPM Beer Podcast. My name's Sean. Joining me today is Marco Holden Jeffrey, Mr. HJ. How are you?
Pretty good, Sean. How are you? Oh, what was that sound?
Oh, that was a Soda Smith No. 3 Tasmanian Lemon Myrtle Tonic Water.
Wow.
Thanks for asking.
You don't say.
Not a sponsor.
Chin chin.
But how are you, mate?
Oh, that's pretty good.
It is.
That's kind of exactly what I feel like on a mild afternoon like today. I was even thinking of taking my shirt off, you know.
Feel free, man.
I've been in the car all day, mate, you know, driving around, doing this, doing that.
As they say, meat casa, suit casa.
Oh, we do have a laugh, don't we?
And that's where the term meat suit comes from.
Really? From the Spanish.
yeah, crazy. Because you know how they... Paella. Let's not get into the details. Driving around a lot. Is that the story you wanted to dive in on, or was it the final destination?
Well, yeah, so I've been driving around a lot today. That wasn't the final story. But I've been, doing stuff for work, had an appointment in St Kilda, and then I went to a house inspection in Brunswick at about 4:15 this afternoon. First of all, you get there and there's about 50 people lining up and down the street. It was in a similar situation to this. It was in like a kind of, not to dox Sean, but in like a, neighborhood a court of townhouses. This had like a gate and everything.
Honestly, I've seen the videos on social media of people lining up for the rentals, and it's like, holy fuck.
It's mental. I think this is the worst moment in Melbourne's history for rentals, and I'm so glad to be searching for a house during it. There's like about 50 of us lined up, not in front of the house, like in front of the court, and then the house is like deep into the court. And you see the agents kind of like, messing about with the door for a little bit, trying different keys and stuff. And then he's like, "Oi, mate." He like motions for me to come over, and he's like, I don't have the key to get in. Can you boost me over the fence?
Really?
Yeah, I'm like, I guess so. Yeah. So I got one down on one knee, boosted him over the fence. He went in, he had the key for the inside bit, and then he just like...
So you did it out of the 50 people?
Yeah. I happened to be near the front of the line, and...
I
don't know, I guess I looked like the strongest and most helpful young man there. Yeah. And then I joked to him, I was like, oh yeah, I'll put it on the cover letter, mate.
Well, fucking oath, you should. That's great.
Yeah, but then, it was not, this was
it wasn't a good place.
It was a 3-bedroom that was really a 1.5 bedroom.
Yeah.
And it had like...
Weren't you guys talking about sharing bedrooms anyway? Like bunking? You'll have 2 living rooms then.
That would be something, mate. It had a great living space. But so again, not to dox Sean, but you live in a townhouse with a courtyard.
Fuck, man, it's getting pretty there on me.
It's a big courtyard. Like you got this fine piece of timber in the middle.
Oh my goodness.
You got a little potential veggie patch over there.
Well, fuck you. There's vegetables in it. You can see it.
But like this place, it was like, oh yeah, it's got a courtyard and it's got like a little deck out the front. And then you get there and the courtyard's actually like half a meter wide. And it just has one of those, like, kind of, even maybe half of the washing line that you have.
So it's like you can maybe have a cigarette in it.
Yeah. You'd be able to have a cigarette in it. But you'd be able to have like a stressed, like, God, I really needed this cigarette in
like
it.
Ben Affleck standing at the front.
And you'd be able to hang like half a load of washing.
Yeah.
And, it
wouldn't even get sun.
Yeah. Oh, no, it was dark. It was dark as hell. And like, I'm not asking for... In fact, I'm totally against having a huge garden like I have currently. Too much fuss. Yeah. But God, I need more than more than half a meter by a meter.
This is the standard that we're sitting in.
This is ideal size for a townhouse courtyard.
That's damn. That would be great if you could apply for it and be like, I was the guy that fucking helped you.
I know. I was walking up to the front door. I'm like, fuck yeah, I've got this place. But.
Well, all you need to do is push a man over a fence. Hearing your story about driving around everywhere, we had this dude fill in for us on basketball on Monday, and he great guy. Shout out to, if he's listening, which he's not. Shout out to Yui for filling in. It was great. Talking to him a bit, I'm like, do you play basketball? Yeah, I play here and there. And he goes, I just played a game before this. I'm like, oh fuck, well, thanks for filling in, back-to-back games and stuff. Yeah, no worries. Where was your last game? MSAC. What? He works I think around Coburg, right? I think that was right.
No.
Works around Coburg. Drove into MSAC to play basketball. He's been asked to fill in, so he's driven back to Coburg to play a second game. Oh my god! And he lives in Roxy.
Far out.
Yeah,
that's dedication.
I was like, holy, we need to give you the match fee as opposed to like, not that he paid because he's a fill-in, but
Was he good?
he was good. He was good. No Lucas Petridis, but like, serviceable. Like made the extra pass, but also if he's open, he's shooting it.
Yeah, that's what you want, isn't it?
Which can't be said for Sean Carroll.
No, not at all. That gives shades of Ned Ryan, who I feel like, he'd drive out to Baldwin North or whatever to play basketball, but then he'd pick up people like in random suburbs along the way, and it's like your 45-minute game is turning into like a 4-hour expedition. If I leave work at 4:30, then we'll be at the stadium at 6:30, and I'll be home for dinner at 8.
And it's like, man, all basketball games are on at peak time traffic. That's so horrible. But should we talk about the nitty gritty of the podcast? Do you want to introduce the topic?
Yeah, sure. We'll give a little bit of a disclaimer at the start. Me and Sean were discussing what we wanted to talk about for this episode, and I suggested the sort of great offensive season we're having in the NBA, and then this morning Zach Loeb published a podcast on the same topic. I haven't listened to it yet, I don't know if we're going to have much crossover, but we're in what feels like, and if you look at the numbers, is like one of the greatest offensive seasons in NBA history, if you will. We've had like all these 60-point games, we've had all these 70-point games, and we can get into like, how that's sort of trickling down further down the league as well. But then the discourse around it has been, instead of being like, wow, look at all these, physical anomalies we have who can shoot, dribble, pass, do everything. It's been, NBA teams just don't defend anymore. Paul Pierce, noted great basketball mindset on X.com. Damn, I miss defense in the NBA. And not to put the cart before the horse, but I just don't think that's really. I don't really think that's the answer to why we're having such an insane offensive season in the NBA, and why the NBA offense has just been getting better and better and better for like the past 20 years basically. So I just wanted to sort of start going through like the numbers for this season, see why that might be the case that they're at that point, and then we can talk about like some of the individuals and why it is possible for 5-6 different players to be putting up 60 points
in a week,
on a given night.
In a week is pretty cool. I'll add a bit more context. The 2016-17 Warriors, which was the first Warriors team, it was the second.
It was the second championship team.
Championship team.
First
Kevin Durant. First KD team. We had a league. At the end of the year, we had an offensive rating of 115.6.
Yeah.
Right now, the Indiana Pacers are leading the way with 121.3, and the first team to be worse than the Warriors is the Utah Jazz, who currently have the 15th ranked offense.
The league average is 115.8.
Yeah, which is that makes sense. That makes so much sense that 15's right in the middle. There's a better way to say that. So it's like offense is definitely up, and there's a lot of contributing factors. Where do you want to start with this?
I mean, should we? Let's look at let's contextualize this season first. I guess I got some numbers I want to throw at you. So the 2023-24 NBA season won't surprise you. It's the most points per 100 possessions, 115.8. Like I just say, second most 3-point attempts at 35.1. Second most field goal attempts at 89.4. This is per team. Interestingly, most of these stats, it's like the last 5-10 years are like the top 10 basically. But the season with the most field goal attempts was the 1991-92 season, which just like feels completely, I don't know, just doesn't sort of fit the context of it all. This is the season teams have the best effective field goal percentage with 54.7. It doesn't really work to like look at 3-point percentage or anything because obviously like volumes change, etc. So like even though that's a flawed stat, it might be the best indicator. And it's the most average assists in a season with 26.6 and least turnovers with 13.7. So, like, not only are players, better at scoring baskets, at shooting the ball, they're, like, getting the ball to their teammates and, not in the hands of defenders less.
Yeah, and I promise this is the last time we say context, but it's also mid-season. Teams who aren't tanking right now will be tanking at the end of the year. Maybe there could be a blow-up for a couple of teams, and that'll bring the league average down. And teams slow down. Teams that are good might also slow down just because they're comfortable with their record. So I think this number is going to fall off. We usually do see midway through the season. It is great, but we're definitely bigger and better than we have been in previous seasons. I'll start off with my theory when we were sort of spitballing about this idea, and that's to go back to a Doc Rivers quote from 2008. And it's not a direct quote, but he's always said defense wins championships. And he came in and obviously, Doc Rivers in 2008 was like one of the leading social figures of our lives, because I feel like we talk about him like as much as Gandhi and like Mother Teresa. Like 2008 Doc Rivers is just like its own entity. And it's true. Like, it was always like, oh, defense wins championships, and it makes perfect sense. It's like, well, obviously, like, focus on your defense. And he came into that Boston team and said, focus on defense. They fucking had a great defense. And I think it's now sort of flipped based on lots of rules that have changed since 2008, and the Steph Curry and the James Harden to have sort of revolutionised the way we play basketball. And like, there's a lot of credit that needs to be given to those James Harden Rockets teams for just being able to find success just by jacking up shots and stuff. And I think it's more offense wins championships now. And I think it's like defense is going to be there. And, funnily enough, that when Doc Rivers was going in those back-to-back finals against the LA Lakers, he was going against Kobe. And with someone like Kobe, where it's like, man, you could play brilliant defense for 23 seconds, and he might be dribbling for 23 seconds. And if he gets that shot off, at the end of the day, if he just jumps a little bit higher, if he's just practiced a little bit harder than his defender, and he just puts up a shot, there's a non-0% chance that a shot's going to go in. Like, if you back up Draymond Green and you're able to throw the shot over him, there's a non-zero chance that shot goes in. And I think we're seeing players, just with every sport, just with physical science, just with athletics, we're seeing people just get better. And offensive players right now, I think, are definitely on the up right now, and they're proving to be better than the defense is right now, and that's maybe going to catch up, maybe not. But I think offense is winning championships, and at the moment, offenses are just better than defenses. Do you agree? Or
I do agree. Just before we talk about that, on the like defense wins championships or offense wins championships points, I think you're right. I think offense is more important. But like, if you look at the last, like 10 NBA champions, like, they had to have a good defensive underpinning to do it. Like, the Warriors obviously had this like revolutionary offense, but was linchpinned by, Draymond Green and Andre Iguodala and Klay Thompson, and them just being able to like switch everything. The Lakers, the Lakers had a really good defense. The only reason they really won is because their offense was kind of overperforming, if anything, which I think supports your point. The Bucks had one of the best defenses in the league. The Nuggets last year, like, as much as it, like, that's definitely an offense first team, but like, their defense had to come together. And
they've got a good theory of the case.
Exactly. Like, with Jokic improving, with Aaron Gordon coming on the team, Bruce Brown, KCP, like, just all those, like, those are defensive championship players. Essentially. But yeah, to your point that offenses are just getting better and defenses aren't catching up, I think we're seeing more of that. Like, I think Kobe's like a good example of it, where it's like, well, like, what do you do to stop a player like that when they get hot? Like, if they can get a shot up over any player, and if you double them, they're either going to pass out of it or just like dribble through both of those. And like, again, I won't spoil too much, but when Luka had his 73-point game the other day, they were doubling him, and he was just acting like there was no defender there. Like, he's that sort of player that once he's hot, there isn't like a scheme or an individual player you can throw on him to slow him down at all. And I think we have like 6 or 7 guys who are like that in the league at the moment.
If you don't want to say Kobe, because obviously it's like Hall of Fame, a top 10 player, say Cam Thomas. That's someone who I've been thinking about a lot, where it's like Cam Thomas he can go off for 40 any night, but then we've seen this season he can go off for 10 and maybe less than 10 every night. And if he's a dude where if he hits his upper echelon, he's going to be like Devin Booker. And Devin Booker is one of those guys that creates advantages. And Devin Booker, not known as a great passer, but like if you're getting doubled, you can very quickly find the open man, or at least swing it, and your team's going to find the open man if you like connect it enough.
Yeah. Even like we're going to go through all these big names in a bit, but like. What PJ Washington had 44 the other night or something.
Yeah. Or did you see the thing where it had 0 views in like 20 minutes? It was like actually the Charlotte Hornets official page. That's so sad.
And then Keegan Murray had what did he have?
Something.
He broke every 3-point scoring record for the Kings basically.
Yeah, but held by like Payas still.
Yeah. But the point is that you can with the 3-point shot. Especially like if someone gets hot and you just keep feeding them, they can be up to 40 points very very quickly. Yeah.
And the spacing is the way that it is now in the NBA, so that if they do, so if someone does get hot and you do force a double, or they just stay hot and they just keep shooting over guys, the spacing is big enough that they're going to be able to find the gaps. Yeah. And it's just it's a perfect storm.
Yeah, 100%. I did want to look at one other thing before maybe we get into like these specific players, because I was interested to see if, despite the general offense, being better, if there are teams that have managed to have historically good defenses, but I think just the context of everyone being better at offense kind of blows that out of the water. If you look at the best individual team defensive ratings, in history, most of the top 20 is teams from the 70s, the 77, 78 Washington Bullets and teams like that, which, let's just note as well, that's probably the least popular the NBA has ever been in its history, in that, the pre 3-point line, but also pre Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, pre MJ, obviously. But the teams that do sneak into the top 20, interestingly enough, and I wonder if you have a theory about this, I don't, are the 03-04 Spurs, the 03-04 Pistons, and the 03-04 Pacers. They're all in the top 20, which is...
Yeah, and I'm trying to find correlation. Just 2 of them are in the East.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that Pistons team is they call that one of the greatest defensive teams of all time. From the eye test and from, how they shut the Lakers down in the finals. That Spurs team, I can imagine why they were good at defense. They had Timmy D and David Robinson. That Pacers team,
it was like Ron Artest.
That's
Malice
right.
and the Palace.
Was
that was because the rule that, my history isn't perfect here, but the rule that pretty much ruined the Pistons was the hand checking defense rules.
Yeah, so it must have been the last season. Yeah, hand checking or something, or one of the last seasons.
To go back to your 78, 79.
I
was just looking at 78, 79 was the year that 79 was the year they brought the 3-pointer in.
Yeah.
But when did they bring the 3-point line distance? What was that? Oh, great radio. There was that year as well, which also blew some things out of proportion. It all just corrected. Now we're just back ahead of it. I guess so. Going back to those 03, 04 stuff, then it's we're talking about the rule changes and defensive rule changes, and we've seen more rule changes in recent history. Both for and against our argument here that why offense is so good. There was sort of the Trae Young rule where it's you can't just can't swipe under and just get to the free throw line for free, because free throws are the best thing you can do for an offense because it stops the clock and you just purely push your offensive rating up. But we're still seeing a lot of fouls. Because dudes have just adapted. Trae Young was well, this is going to ruin his career. He's going to miss 7 points a game. And it's no, he actually just did other things.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of flicking his head back, he would just keep driving. And it's he's just a good basketball player.
Yeah, and it's James Harden just gets one offensive foul every 2 games or something instead of a few extra free throws. And another rule, I don't know how much this really goes into it, but the rule about stopping the Euro foul on a fast break, so stopping it, and we looked up, it was 2 years ago. No, I think I think it was made even stricter at the beginning of this season.
That makes sense. But the one where like if you're all in the half court, the other team has stolen the ball on a live ball action, and then you just whack them and say, well, let's just take it to the side. That now being just so punished so hard. Not that the punishment is bringing up the offensive numbers, but if you're the big man, like if Jokic was a big guy who did this, where if you're Jokic, you've just got the ball picked, instead of slapping the dude, the small guard who just picked your pocket that you're never going to catch up to, his brain now says, I have to wait, and I have to just let them go. That's two of the freest points anyone will ever get. And I think there's a little bit of that. Obviously, the defensive rules that changed like over 20 years ago. But do you think Adam Silver wants the league the way it is? Do you reckon Adam Silver sees his offensive ratings and goes, great, like, can we make them higher?
100%. 100%. Like, these like huge individual performances. I don't think that like the Indiana Pacers having like a historically good offensive rating is attracting people to the NBA. People aren't going like, wow, I can't wait to see the Indiana Pacers put 126 points up for 100 possessions. But they are going, I want to see I want to see Donovan Mitchell go for 70. I want to see Dame Lillard go for 70. Like, because it's such an attractive product. Like, I mean, part of the reason that as someone who came into basketball after Kobe retired, I've always been like, all right, he was really good, but like so much of his fame and mystique was because he was like just this dominant offensive player who could take control of a game wherever he wanted, Mamba mentality, etc., the 80-point game, blah, 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 blah. And I think like Adam Silver correctly realizes that's like the best product for the NBA. It's not like, wow, look how they, look how this. It's definitely not the defense. It's definitely like not like, oh, look how this team held James Harden to 9 points on like 22% shooting from the field, or like, look how this team is keeping teams under 100 points, night in and night out. It's like individual players playing, above and beyond what you usually expect of a basketball player.
And the new second apron rules where they're trying to encourage, talent spreading across the league. And as we talked about a couple of weeks ago, the league saw the Pascal Siakam trade and said, this is good. This is what we wanted. Having that means that there's more of these players on different teams. So Phoenix, Minnesota, Dallas, Cleveland with Donovan Mitchell. It's obviously like Steph Curry and guys like that, where it's like, oh, I have a player on my team that every single day I turn on the TV, I could watch a 50-point game. Two questions after that. Do you reckon we're oversaturating the market, or it doesn't matter? Big numbers, cool.
As like a, the basketball purist side of me is like, it's, and I think we'll talk about this in a bit. Like, it's not fun. It's not always fun to watch someone hunting like 50, 60 points, you get pretty frustrated. We'll talk about
Devin Booker. Just say, you can say his name.
Devin Booker and Karl Anthony Towns, who were both like, oh, fuck yeah, I'm on a hot streak, and basically lost their teams the game because they were jacking up shit. That's not fun, like as like a basketball purist fan. But like, I think it's more those performances where it's like, all right, the defense is throwing everything at them, like, your Luka Doncic. Like, whenever Luka has a big game, it's like, there isn't anything you can do to stop this guy, and that you have to appreciate, because it's like, well, this sort of player wasn't possible 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. You always talk about, it's like, oh, what if Larry Bird was in the contemporary era? And it's like, he'd probably be going for 60 or 70 on any given night, because he could hit a shot from anywhere on the court, he had a good handle, he could pass, etc., etc. But we just like, there wasn't the spacing, there wasn't sort of, I guess, the patience for players to take 23 pointers a night or whatever. So in that sense, I think it's good. I think there are a lot of negative effects of it, though.
I agree with everything you're saying. And the second question was, are we going to see someone in the next 5 years beat Wilt's record of 100?
Nah, no way.
You don't reckon?
I don't. I really think it's just like, it's just too far up there. Like,
it's a lot of fucking points. But like, I reckon as soon as we do pass the 100 mark, because I think we will in the next decade, someone's going to score 100 points. It might be Luka, or it might be someone who's not drafted yet, right? And I think when we get to that point, there's going to be a lot of questions and a lot of discussions about like, fuck, is this too much? Like, you know, Will getting 100 was like, man, he's just playing against like unfit firemen, right? And like the dude, there was a story in Bill Simmons' book of basketball that when he scored that 100-point game, the team he was playing against, their starting center was just like, fuck, I don't want to play Will. Will's just embarrassing everyone. Like, he's just had 40 and 40 and like 50 points. And then the night before, he got really drunk, like at a bar, and then was just way too hungover and was like, I've got the flu, I can't play. And then they just had this rookie center that had played like 0 minutes all game, and that's who Will was guarded against, right? And it's like, whoa, this isn't basketball. Like, you know, if the backup was Chris Boucher, like he could do something. Like a backup nowadays is better than this, like, part-time fireman, right? Yeah. But I reckon we're going to get there because the numbers just keep getting bigger every single year. It just keeps growing, and when we get there, it's going to be like, oh, hang on, are we now in the phase that when people look back on us 40 years, they're going to be like, man, they let Lucas score 100. Like, look at him. He's like, he has a beer every now and again. He smokes shisha, stuff like that.
I'm not sure if I agree with you. I really think that there's just like a physical limit to 48 minutes of basketball. It's hard to eclipse. And I would even argue that because like your average NBA player is so much better than your average NBA player back then. Like, Luka had 73 against the Atlanta Hawks. Not a stellar defense by any means, but when he was getting doubled, he was getting doubled by DeJounte Murray and Jalen Johnson, who are like two theoretically good defenders. Like, it's not like you know, it's not like the rookie backup point guard just got chucked on Luka, and like I imagine they did in the 60s. It's like, oh, well, you just have to guard him all game. Like, we're not going to try different looks or anything. Like, you just have to try and keep up with him. And he had, like, to talk about his game specifically, like, he was 25 or 33 from the field, 15 or 16 from the free throw line. That's like pretty much as perfect as you can get. And he, you know, he had 7 assists on top of that.
He was responsible for 89 points.
Yeah. So that's pretty good.
He's 11 off the...
Yeah. But, you know, it's still like how many more shots can you put up in 40-something minutes, you know?
33 is not many.
Yeah, I guess, but like...
Yeah. And maybe this is an argument for maybe like 5 years ago, the league was talking about lowering the minutes limit. Yeah. Like, summer league games are 40 minutes, then they started experimenting with G League games that they might still be 40-minute games. Because if you're having this explosion, then all of a sudden you bring down 8 minutes, then you're just going to have, that you're still going to be having 100 versus 102. I think in the next 5 to 10 years, there will be a 100 point, maybe multiple.
Damn.
And then I think there's going to be a discussion about, like, fuck, what have we done here? But then what's the alternative? Like, bring back zone defense, and then we just...
bring back hand checking.
Yeah.
But, I don't know, do you think, is there a way... This is such a, like, enormous question. Is there a way that, like, NBA teams can get better at defending?
This episode of The Deep 2 is presented by Gelateria Bico, the official gelato of The Deep 2. Gelateria Bico, handmade gelato in the heart of Brunswick.
The Jeff Van Gundy Tribute Show is your fortnightly dose of the lighter side of basketball, hosted by me, Marco.
And me, Lucas. We take a more laid-back approach, talking about the NBA, the WNBA, FIBA basketball, culture, whatever tickles our fancy or grinds our gears.
The show is filled with great guests, classic gags, and a healthy dose of tangents in honour of the great man himself.
The Jeff Van Gundy Tribute Show, fortnightly on the Deep 2 Podcast Network.
You know, loves just talking about the league, certain things like that.
Like is there just some, like, hidden scheme? Like, when I used to play Hearthstone quite heavily, Ben Brode, the director...
This will be good.
the director of Hearthstone, he, like, obviously they'd be bringing out new expansions and stuff, and, like, you know, with all the new expansions there'd be new decks and blah, blah, blah. And then there was this one deck, like, about 1 year into the game, and I can't remember what it was called, but the deck was like, this deck's just untouchable. Like, no one will ever beat, like, Quest Shaman, right?
Yeah.
Like, and it's like this is the absolute perfection of what Hearthstone can be. And then so the meta was just like, it's either you're playing that deck or you're playing one of 3 decks that are made to stop that deck, right? And then someone's like, what do you think, Ben Brode, about, like, what do you think about the state of the game? Because we've just got this such a dominant deck. And he's like, oh, I'm actually quite surprised that that is the dominant deck, because it's like when we released these expansions and we did our play testing and then threw it into a robot and just made the robot simulate it, we actually came up with this other deck that we thought was better than this shaman deck, right? And we were like, this deck's just like this is the greatest deck ever, but the community just never found it, and it became like a bit of a mythical thing where it was like, oh, you know, the unknown deck, like the unknown meta,
right?
And then all of a sudden people went back out there. Beautiful marketing, like seriously. People went out there and there's just like forums are going off, this is the mystery deck, this is the mystery deck. It could have just been, he could have been lying, but the idea that, you know, you've got this set of, it would have been about 1,000 cards then, and there's so many combinations of 30 card decks that you can make, that of course there's probably going to be something missed, like unless you're a robot just scanning something, you know, for 24 hours a day. So with to tie that back into defense, like we're seeing that like the best defense right now is to have like Draymond Green, a prime Draymond at your 5, Giannis at the 4, like, you know, and Brook Lopez or Jaren Jackson, like that's what we know right now. But in a little bit like, what's the mystery deck? We don't know what the next evolution is until we see it. And like the James Harden stuff with just free throws and threes, it was like, that was, you can't do that. You can't play basketball like that. And then they did, and now everything's changed.
And a thought I just had is, I guess, like the uptick in rookies coming into the league having to be good at 3-point shooting, or having to get good at 3-point shooting, because it's like, all right, well, we've seen how good it is to have 5 guys on the floor who can shoot threes. Like, you know, eventually the same could be like, all right, well, okay, we want to make the Western Conference Finals. We're probably gonna have to beat Luka Doncic at some stage. Do we need like an elite on-ball defender who can, at the very least, like slow him down without having to double him every time down the court? And then it's like, all right, well, when we're drafting or constructing our team, are we then being like, all right, are you 6'6" and good at defense? Like, you know? And then do we just see more players like that? Where the kind of average defensive ability of any given team kind of lifts because of that. But I don't know. But the easier option is obviously like find another guy who can score 70 points a night.
Well, and I feel like that goes back to the Doc Rivers point, or the anti-Doc Rivers, where it's like offense wins championships, where teams are building their rosters, going, okay, how can we get the next Tyrese Haliburton or Luka Doncic, and then figure everything else out from there.
Exactly.
Like, okay, so we're like, cool, we've got Shea. Let's just not mention the fact that he was traded to the to the Detroit Pistons for the Cade Cunningham pick. That was a legit offer. But like, you know, once you've got your guy, then figure it out. And then it's like, maybe you draft Marcus Smart, or maybe you draft like player X who comes in, and it's like, oh, you have the prototypical body to do that. But then if that player is like Derek Jones Jr. and they can't shoot, then you've sort of ruined your offense. And then it goes, well, you need to score, because the last thing you want is to be like Game 7 of the finals and you just can't put the ball in the basket.
For sure.
It comes down to the Cam Thomas theory, the Cam Bryant theory. Do you want to run through some of these games?
All right. So let's start with Joel Embiid, because, you know, I think this is a good distillation of what's good and what's bad. So just open by saying he's third in all-time free throw attempts per game with 10.1, behind Wilt and who was it? Jerry West or Elgin Baylor?
Bro, you can. I reckon our listeners will be like, "That's fine. It's one of them."
So like, you know, he is actually taking free throws at a historic clip. So that criticism of him is correct. He's averaging 36 this season, which is just absolute. I don't know what he had today. What did they play today?
They played the Warriors. And the Warriors beat them in a rout.
Wow, cart before the horse.
Top scoring for the Philadelphia 76ers. Tobias Harris, 26 points.
Well, okay, so
Joel Embiid, 14 points.
Wow.
2 of 2 free throws.
Hey, cop that. That's not the game we came to talk about. But cop that. So he's averaging 36 on the season, which is crazy. Like there was something in the Athletic about there was something. Oh no, there was a Zach Lowe thing that he probably then talked about on the podcast about how it's just like there are so many reasons why this season from Joel Embiid is just unprecedented offensively. So against San Antonio, stellar defensive team. He had 70 points, 18 rebounds, 5 assists, 24 of 41 from the field. So he put up, you know.
Yeah, he put up more than Luke's 33. Yeah.
2 of 4 from 3, so he's not relying on that. And then 21 of 23 from the free throw line.
Yeah,
so, like, I mean, there's a couple of and ones in there, but you could assume that he went to take a shot about 50 times in that game.
Yeah.
Which,
Yeah,
you know, that puts you in that Wilt Chamberlain realm that we're kind of talking about. Yeah, how do you feel about this game, and I guess what it says about the way Embiid, you know, plays basketball?
Yeah, well, all these... All right, so Embiid did it against San Antonio.
Yeah.
You might know this, but the opposing centers are very skinny.
Yeah.
Luka Doncic did it against the Atlanta Hawks, who just can't defend. Kat did it against Charlotte, who can't do anything in basketball.
And then lost the game.
And Booker did it against Indiana.
Yeah.
And Giannis did something, but Giannis...
Yeah, it was in December. We've forgotten about it.
They're all going against bad defenses, and Embiid obviously cops it because he's the goose, because he ducks.
Yeah.
But it's just... I don't know, like... it's... In the record books, he's got 70 points, and that's what matters. Where it's like, who did Donovan Mitchell score like the 71 or the 80 points against last year? I literally have no idea.
It was a really good game. Because, I mean, it went to OT.
I think it was Portland.
Nah, because Dame... He had 71 against the Chicago Bulls.
Yeah, right.
Not a great defensive team.
Yeah. I guess that when all these big scoring games are coming against bad defenses, unless it's like an all-time game, which like Steph Curry's 53 against Oklahoma City or 46 or whatever it was, where it went to overtime and he had a little bit of extra time to score those points or something. Yeah, I guess this is just the new 40 burger against a bad team because the offense is inflated, which is kind of cooks. And again, we're going to see 100 points soon.
Yeah,
I said 10 years. I said 5 to 10. Now I'm saying soon.
Yeah, and like this is a very easy game for Embiid to, you know, like again, rookie center, like you know, you're gonna get a lot of foul calls on him. What did the 22 foul calls against the Spurs in that game, and he went to the line 23 times. So basically every second foul was sending him to the line. And like I guess then the thing is like Embiid's become a very difficult player to stop, like even for good defenses, because like he's an excellent shooter, he's really strong, and he's really, really good at drawing fouls, for better or for worse, for flop or for fortune, let's call it. Do you think there's like a historic NBA player that you know could shut down Embiid? Like if you put him against the 2000 Lakers, like would they have a nice shot on him? Or
Aless is going to hate this, but Draymond did a really good job today. Draymond picked up a foul on the jump ball, and we've been starting Draymond with Wiggins and JK. Draymond did a good job. Embiid got to the free throw line 6 times. He was 2 of 6, which isn't going to happen, right?
Jeez.
But
must be walking off an injury or something.
Well, yeah, is he? That's a good question. He was also playing like there was no Tyrese Maxey. Maybe it was like maybe he didn't really want to get up for the game. Just trying to hit those 65 game prerequisite. By the way, when he held up the piece of paper that said 70 on it, like in the Wilt style, and then he ducked Denver, and then someone like held it up, and it was like last game played in Denver 2019. Like he hasn't played in Denver since the pandemic.
Isn't it? That's nuts.
But like he was so loud to talk when he beat Jokic in Philly. Jokic played like every single matchup in Philly.
Is Cameroon like a really low altitude or something? Like is it harder for him to adjust?
He's got to overcorrect after moving 10 years ago. Like I think Draymond did a good job.
Yeah, Draymond is like that.
Yeah,
the guy who isn't a traditional center who you kind of would trust.
You need someone nimble and sturdy enough to not get posted up.
Yeah, exactly.
But like, how are you going to find that? And so, are you walking into the draft being like, let's find our next Draymond?
Yeah, probably not.
Also, one thing that I love to see is that when there's the NBA draft combine, players, one of the things they get interviewed on, and one of the things they have to fill out is who's your favorite player. And there was some draft a couple of years ago, and like 2 of the people said Draymond Green, and I was like, man, like, because if you're a draft prospect, right?
Yeah.
and teams are trying to get a gauge on like your personality and like whether your head's in the game, just lie. Like if your favorite player is Kyrie, just say Derek White.
Yeah,
and they're gonna be like, oh my god, this guy, like he just wants to be like the solid role player. Like, he does.
Yeah, because any guard is gonna be like, Steph Curry.
Yeah,
like, all right, well you're gonna Jordan Hawkins and put up 15 threes in your first game.
Famously that draft that I can't remember, 2 guys said the favorite player was Draymond, 1 person said Steph.
Yeah, right.
Which is like clearly that agents are like, look, just say the defensive role
you're
player.
You're not gonna.
Yeah,
you're projecting to be in the 20s.
Yeah.
Better to attract people with that. All right, well, let's move on to Luka Doncic, who we have spoken on about. He's averaging 34.4 this season, which is crazy as well. I think this is his best shooting season across the board, but his 3-point shooting in particular, 37.5% on 10.4 attempts. So it's like when you're shooting at that volume, it's fine to duck below the 40% apron, especially when you can do everything that.
And you're making 4 a game. Like, yes, 12 points a game on just 3.
Yeah, exactly. And let's note that that's like about the same amount of free throws that Embiid. Actually, sorry, Embiid's taking more free throws per game than Luka is taking threes. I think this goes without saying, but like Luka Doncic is kind of one of a kind in terms of like, I don't know what he's like Magic Johnson with a jump shot, or he's like LeBron James if he was more of like playing point guard his entire career, or like there's all these kind of like comparisons you can make, but really there's no one on our offense who like can do everything that Luka can do. And I think that was just like fully evident against the Hawks, where I ran through 73 points, 10 rebounds, 7 assists, 25 of 33 from the field, 8 of 13 from 3, 15 of 16 from the free throw line. He was just doing everything. Like, pulling up from deep, getting to the rim. I think they were just blitzing every single pick and roll towards the end, and he wasn't even like passing out of it. He was just dribbling through both players and like either pulling up or getting all the way downhill. And it's I think it's also interesting that he did this in 45 minutes, and took considerably less like attempts, both field goal and free throw attempts, than Embiid, who played only 37 minutes. Embiid, who we said made maybe like 50 attempts for a shot, versus Luka, who took maybe like 40 in 8 more minutes. And yet, he had 2 more points. 3 more points, sorry.
And more assists.
Yeah, exactly right.
Luka is a freak to himself, and it's like, there's the James Harden comparisons, but Luka is now like, he's just Luka Doncic. Pretty crazy and surprisingly repeatable. Like, that's my favorite keyword, but it's like the step back shouldn't be this dependable, but it is for him.
Yeah, exactly.
It's pretty bonkers, to quote my good friend Dizzy.
Yeah, and like in the way that, those really dominant bigs like Jokic, Embiid, Giannis, like you can't stop them because of their athleticism, their size and everything, and like maybe we'll see Wemby start to enter that category in the next few years. Luka's like, you can't stop him just because he's so good at basketball. Like if you're throwing double teams on him on every possession and he's still scoring 73 points, like it's kind of like putting an undersized rookie center on Embiid, like kind of what's the point?
Well said.
So I think this is the worst one of these 60-point plus efforts. But Cat, he is averaging 22.6 this season, so not those are like Zion Williamson numbers. Let's be honest.
Future Hall of Fame.
He against the Charlotte Hornets, he had 62, 8, and 2. He had 44 at the half, and then put up 18 on 7 of 18 shooting in the second half. So like, and you could see like, their lead just slip away in the third quarter when everyone on the Wolves was like, go, get 100. And like they just completely lost that game, let that game slip away. I think Cat got benched, in the fourth. He missed some like, really important and like not that difficult shots considering the caliber that he was hitting in the first half,
and against a bad defense as well.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I think this is the really ugly side of this offensive explosion that we're talking about.
Quote from head coach Chris Finch: "We totally disrespected the game. We totally disrespected the game ourselves, and we got exactly what we deserved, being a loss against the Charlotte Hornets." And it's like, the offense is built around Anthony Edwards doing his thing, and Cat is now sort of a floor spacer who can punish a mismatch.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy that he got 6-2 in a loss, but it does make sense.
Yeah. You're right. Like, he's not even the fulcrum of this team. It is like if Cam Thomas had 44 points at halftime, and they were like, "Go, Cam!" Like, you'd probably do that if you're the Brooklyn Nets because you're
like 5 games under 500.
Yeah, exactly. But not if you're the league leading Minnesota Timberwolves.
Yeah, you've got a dependable thing in Minnesota. You can depend on your offense and it works. Whereas Brooklyn are like, we don't have a pick this year, and I guess we kind of have to win games, so let's just go with the hot hand.
Yeah, exactly.
Second worst performance, Devin Booker.
Devin Booker. And I think this is the guy who's like, I guess his like style of player isn't unique to this era. I think he's more of that like classic, shoot first shooting guard, like your Jordans and your Kobe's and stuff like that, where it's like, all right, ISO, get a mismatch, and just like get a shot up and it will probably go in because you're pretty good at basketball. He's averaging 28.4 on the season. He had like hot to start the season, and then he was injured for a bit, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Fell off, and he's
always got the lower body extremities.
And then it wasn't that great when he came back, but he's been pretty good the last few games. Against Indiana, are they the worst defense in the league, or the worst defense in the league on a team that matters?
Let me tell you.
Just a team that's completely shed all defensive identity for offense. Which is what this episode's about. 62 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 22 of 37 shooting, 6 of 12 from 3, and 12 of 13 free throws. So like pretty well-rounded game again, but again they lost by 2 points to like a team that they really should have steamrolled if they had someone with a hot hand like that.
Indiana Pacers have the 5th worst defense. From the bottom, it's Hornets, Hawks, Pistons, Wizards.
Oh, right. Yeah. So I guess the Hawks are trying technically. But
so then Pacers, Spurs, and then Warriors.
Yeah, right.
But the league came down with a hard suspension, which is
wait, so that also means that these 4 games came against 4 of the 6 worst defensive teams in the league.
Which
not just eye test, but actually bad.
Bad teams and actually bad defenses. The Booker stuff, like, it's so easy to make fun of Dante and say Devin Booker loves big numbers against bad teams, but like he kind of does.
100%.
And he kind of deserves the hate that he gets. But I guess what's the takeaway from making fun of Devin Booker here? No, I'm trying to think of like something other than just pointing and laughing.
I don't know. I think probably on a team that has as much like top end talent as the Phoenix Suns, like you don't want to like have a guy hunting for 60 plus points when you want to win the game. Like. You see just real weird box scores in Phoenix all the time where Kevin Durant takes like 8 shots because Booker's hot, and like they win a lot of those games as well.
It seems like KD's happy doing that with the pass and kick sort of offense.
For sure, but also like, at a certain point you just ask KD to start hitting.
It's like this dude's getting double and triple teamed.
Exactly right.
I really hate bringing it back to the Warriors, but like sort of credits to Steve Kerr for all those years when like Steph had 45 at 3/4 time or Clay had 60 points at 3/4 time, and he was just like, we've won the game. Like what am I gaining from putting you back out there? If we need to win the game, then we'll do it. But like Clay getting 37 points in the 3rd quarter against the Kings, then we pulled away by 20, and he's like, awesome, like you're done for the day. Like you can pretty much go home now. Something to be said for that. Maybe the Warriors would have some bigger records now. Warriors do have some records for hitting it. I kind of feel shit for bringing this take.
No, but it's a good point because it's always that thing where it's like when if some people if some teenagers are looking at the record books in 10 years' time, like, oh, Steph never really, like, he never had a 100-point game like Luka did. Like, he never even got close. Like, that context is super important. That, like, the Warriors were so good that, he never had to. Like, he never sort of had to pull past, the 40-point mark because they were so far up by that time.
Which has just made me think of something.
Also, wait, sorry. This is another thing. Like, also, Steph Curry's like big shooting games are coming like in the flow of the Warriors offense. Like the Warriors offense is built to get him open shots. If you think about like Booker often, but also like that Donovan Mitchell game from last season, like that was like, fuck, nothing's working. Can you score 70 points and win us the game? Like, yeah.
I'm just trying to come up with like a way. So like when those teenagers are in the library for like period 2 and they're just on Wikipedia and it's like, look, Steph Curry's great, but did he ever have a 70-point game? Points per minute?
Oh, yeah.
Is one way to do it, but all the stats I've quickly just found is per 36, which is fine. But if you could, like, for these explosions, can you divide it by minutes played? So if like Doncic played 40 minutes and got 70, Steph played 30 and got 45, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But let's not cater our takes towards the small people.
Also, that's the most Embiid friendly
it is.
stat, so we should nip that in the bud.
He loves the free ones
before we give him too much credit.
And nothing's free. You know, they want your data. You're the product if that's the case. That's my take on free throws to go back 20 minutes.
That's a great takeaway.
Do you want to wrap it up? Do you have any further comments there?
Nah, look, I think the idea that this is like a problem is silly. Like that, teams need to start playing defense more, or like the game's going to be unwatchable. I think you're right. I think if someone has 100 points, they're going to go, all right, like, are we making it too easy? Should we like balance it out? But like in that meta game way, like, I mean, we're talking about Adam Silver is he knows, all 1,000 cards in the NBA deck, but like the balancing out will be just, I think, to make it more watchable, but it's not at that stage. Like it's not a bad product. Like, I love watching the NBA. This has been a really fun season. I don't think it's been really, really fun because there's been 5 games where someone scored over 60 points. Like, that's not the reason for me. But like, I don't think at the moment this is like hurting the NBA as a product. Like,
I agree. I guess my final point would be to like have a handshake bet with you whether someone's going to get 100 points in the next 5 years.
I'm going to say no, but I think
have I talked you into it? Like, do you feel
I could see it happening, but like it just feels wrong. It just feels like
no one should. Like, that's what the cool thing about the NBA is. The record's such a round number.
Yeah, exactly right.
And it's like, I wish Kobe scored 80 instead of 81. But it's such a round number and it can never be touched. You go, Wilt's 100. So what the fuck's Luka Doncic's 103? Too many words.
And what, this foreigner, this guy from Eastern Europe holds the record for our
beautiful game.
Exactly right. And like, we've seen so many 60-point, 70-point games, but it just hasn't cracked it. It hasn't cracked above that quite yet. But I'll be happily proven wrong. Should we put a Snickers on it? Is that what you put on it?
Yeah, no, we put a choc carrot bar. It was a picnic, but then now Dante's vegan.
Yeah, well, I'm not a vegan, so
we'll do a picnic.
Bloody a T-bone steak or something.
All right. So wait, 2029.
It's an A5 Wagyu, actually.
You're going to buy me a steak in 2029. It's good to get these things in. All right, Mark. I will speak to you next time. Peace.
You want to talk WNBA? Maybe some WNBL? Australian Opals chat? Heck, even dabble in some EuroLeague? Find the W Basketball Show on the Deep 2 Podcast Network.